Hi, my name is Kyle Boyd. I'm an artist manager at Disney Television Animation. So what that sort of means is I oversee all of our designers, our story artists, our art directors and directors. And I also have the pleasure of overseeing our internship, or summer internship, each summer.
All right, thank you so much. I'm Kyle. So anyways, I am the founder and CEO of Danimation Entertainment, an animation company that I started 15 years ago. Can you believe it? So at Danimation, we help educate, elevate, and empower people on the autism spectrum by helping them turn their passion in animation into a career. And what we do year-round is that we provide one-on-one animation sessions to students on the autism spectrum and some summer animation workshops, plus some in-house animation projects. And you also may know me from the Netflix show Love on the Spectrum. And also Adon's here as well. My boyfriend's here. Say hi to Adon.
I'm a Jorge Gutierrez. I'm a writer, director, producer, voice actor, tortilla maker, El Tigre, Book of Life, Maya and the Three.
I love tortillas too, but I don't make them. I make matzo balls. My name is Aubry Minta. I'm a professor of animation for the past 24 years. I'm at Cal State Long Beach now. I'm also the interim executive director at Asifa Hollywood, and an animation filmmaker.
Hey, if this thing works. Hi, my name is Britton Payne, and I work for Nickelodeon Animation. Ooh. But I'm just a lawyer. But I'm really nice. Ooh. But I can't hire you for anything. But I know the people who can, and I believe in the mission of this whole property and this whole project, and I have sharp elbows and a loud voice. So hopefully that can be useful to everybody in the room.
All right, let's give a round of applause to all our panel here, right? Okay. You guys are a great crowd. Look at you guys. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to ask some questions and kind of go down the line. What's that? Oh, my name's Steven Silver. I've been an animation character designer in the animation industry since 1997. I had the opportunity to be a recruiter at Disney for a couple of years, but I also have an online art school, the Silver Drawing Academy, and that's who I am. So thank you guys. All right, so let's just start with a simple question here, but going sort of like down the line. What advice would you give to those artists who are wanting to start out in this animation industry?
Okay, sure. So the biggest number one rule if you want to break out in the animation industry is simply be nice, right? The animation industry is a niche group, so people will recognize your actions and how you behave. Remember, at the very end, they will remember you like their last meal. So that's why it's number one. That's why it's number one to be nice, right? And everyone will know it. And the second advice is to get your work out there as much as you can. You could definitely show your work on YouTube or on social media. And if anybody that wants to see your work, please guide them to your YouTube or social media. And don't wait to get hired by any studio. Remember, anyone nowadays can become an independent animator with so much content because you know what? Anything is possible.
Anybody else? Yes, I'll. That's fantastic. In addition, really just like focusing on a certain area that you want to be a rock star at. So if it's character design or storyboarding, really focusing on that, and just sort of like it's great to learn a lot of different areas of the craft. But really, sort of, our advice would be just also to find an area of focus.
I would also encourage you guys to be, you always dream, but always be pragmatic and realistic about what's out there. And so, for example, if you want to be a character designer for, I don't know, a show you like at Disney or a show you like at Nickelodeon or any of these studios, go on Instagram or Tumblr or Twitter or whatever social media you're into, and look up character designer for that show, and you can a lot of times see people's work who work on those shows now, and you have to be honest with yourself and compare your work to the professional people who have the job you want. And if your work is next to that work and you go, yeah, I'm just as good, then you're on the right path. If you look at your work and you compare it to the professional work and there's still a long way to go, that's okay. That's everybody. And then you just have to put it on you to get better, right? So being realistic about getting better. And my favorite thing I was taught in school was every month look at the drawings you did a month ago, right? Because you start seeing the incremental growth you have as an artist. And again, consistency, especially for all of us on the spectrum. Consistency is more important than talent. So take advantage of that.
All that's been great advice, and I'll just add, to what Jorge was just saying. When you look at the work of others that you're heading towards, and you say, "Well, I'm not there yet," just recognize that everyone has their own path, and it may not happen as soon as you graduate. It may take a year or 2 or 3, and that's okay. Be good to yourself. But as Jorge was saying, find a way to improve. Seamus Culhane wrote a book called Animation from Script to Screen. It's a great book. And in it, he gives you an exercise. And it says, every day, draw your hand for about an hour. And how many, for 1 minute each. So how many hands is that? Yes, 60. So if you do 60 hands every day, by the end of the week, 6 times 7, my math is done. Yeah, a lot of hands. So how many? 600. I knew somebody would know that. 630. So think about that. 630 hands in 1 week. So if you're, as Jorge said, if you look back at your sketchbook, so you look back at your hands, you better have a better hand by the end of that week, right? And then imagine doing it in a month. You're going to have incredible hands by the end of that month. So it's not a way to look at yourself and say I'm not good enough. It's a way to look at yourself and say, how do I get better? And this is a great example of an exercise.
God, I wish I could draw hands. Don't be so precious about your ideas. As the other panelists have said, share it. Share your ideas. As an attorney, I just want to tell you, nobody wants to steal your idea, especially at this stage in your career. What they want is to see what you can do. So I wouldn't worry so much if you've created, Toaster Head Man, and it's the greatest new character in the whole wide world. Get it out there for people to see it. Don't worry about whether you got a piece of paper saying it's yours. It's yours. You're fine. Nobody wants to take it. They want to make their own characters and do their own characters. They're not going to steal yours. But what they can do is get to see the kinds of work that you can do. Get it out there. Don't be shy.
One thing we encourage, and specifically in television animation, is having a lot of range in your portfolio. So if you have a given area, whether that's character design or storyboarding, really having a lot of range and you're, having different tones and sensibilities and styles. Every show looks so different. And so really being able to capture that sort of tone and style is something that can really make you stand out.
Well, way to go, Kyle. That's a great way to. So, anyways, I would like to add what Kyle says is that be out there. Just definitely bring your artwork out there and show it to everybody, and try to network as many people as much as you can. It's not just about what you know; it is who you know. So that's why networking and making connections is definitely the key to get your work out there. And also don't compare yourself to others, because be you.
All right, hot take. So in school, I had teachers who said, diversify, right? Try to draw in all kinds of styles, try to be able to become really employable. And those were honestly the smart teachers. And then I had like punk rock teachers who were like, fuck that. You do you, buddy. Like you ride to hell on your own horse with a sombrero on it. And if you love Mexico so much, get better at the thing you love. And you will probably struggle when you graduate, but if you make it, you get to do your own thing. That's what a teacher told me. And as soon as I graduated and, portfolio reviews, you show your portfolio to all these companies, they were absolutely right. The people would look at my work and they would go like, oh, cool, I love all this Mexican stuff. Where's the non-Mexican stuff? And so every studio I would go to, they would go like, well, if the Rugrats go to Mexico, we know who to call. And if Scooby-Doo ever goes to Acapulco, like, we have your number. And it took a producer at Nickelodeon on a show called Chalk Zone, Larry Huber, who sat me down And he hired me to do a Halloween special. And he said, you know, Jorge, your stuff is so specific that no one will ever, this is what he said, no one will ever hire you to do that. The only person who's going to do that is you. You need to be sitting in my desk. You need to be the show creator, you need to be the showrunner, you need to be the director. You need to be the person who goes, my thing will look like this. So stop trying to cram your style into other things. You become the person who sells the style based on your property. So like an idiot, I was like, he's right. And I went home and that's exactly what I did. I made a little internet cartoon and I put it online and people who saw it said, you did that by yourself? Let's see what you do with money. So I always say, if you want to be a director, direct. If you want to make cartoons, make cartoons. Like make the thing to prove that you can do the thing, right? We can only control what we can control. And the time is the one thing we all have, right? How you spend your time, how you invest in yourself, how you decide what you want to accomplish, honestly comes down to you. Right? This is a world where, thankfully, we get to make things, put them on YouTube, and the whole planet can relate to it. That didn't exist 20 years ago. So now you're seeing things like Hasbin Hotel, where someone goes, well, I'm going to make a little pilot. I'm going to crowdsource it. I have enough friends. We're going to put this together. And now it's one of the biggest shows in the world. And it started as an independent person who said, my thing doesn't fit in any of the studios. I don't care. I'm going to do it. So this is a new era. And for you guys who are starting, this is an incredible time. Like you get to basically write your own story now.
Yeah, and piggybacking on Jorge and Kyle about telling your story. So, looking at the theme of this conference, how does being on the autism spectrum fit in your story? And how do you tell that in a way that other people can understand? So I have 2 students right now that are on the spectrum, and they decided to tell their story through a short film. And one of them is about their brain literally leaving their body, and when they had an assignment due and they had to go chase their brain, ruining everything in the way in order to concentrate and focus. And the other one was a student with ADHD that their brain was like a hamster wheel, just going and going. And when they have music playing, the hamster keeps going. When the music stops, the hamster gets distracted and leaves and starts doing all these other distractions, which is their experience with ADHD. And they're telling it in a way that's making us laugh, entertaining us, but also educating us about what it's like. So don't shy away from whatever you're dealing with in life, whether it's your afflictions or your cultural background. Jorge delve into Mexican culture and didn't stop, and it's his life and journey and legacy in this beautiful way. So there's that. And then I wanted to mention what Dani said about networking. Yes, you'll probably hear that a lot. Like part of it is your work and part of it is who you know, but how do you start networking? And that's very difficult, especially for some of my students on the spectrum. And it's number one is just showing up. You all showed up here. Congratulations. Step 1's done. And then it's like looking to the person to your left and right and meeting people, getting used to introducing yourself and getting to know someone else. And then maybe you have a sentence or 2 in your head that say, hey, maybe if I get the chance, I'm going to talk about the film I'm doing, or I'm going to talk about what I want to do when I enter the industry. And just kind of practicing and rehearsing a few things. That way it evolves into a conversation eventually, and then you start meeting people. And if you keep showing up at different events, you start seeing the same people. I met Steven Silver when I first came to Southern California, and I met Jorge, a few years later. And it's as you start to show up to places, people will recognize you, and that's where networking begins, really.
Yeah, I want to talk about sort of the inside structural setup for animation in Hollywood, because that's a lot of why we're here. So if we're splitting animation process into, there are many parts, but 2 parts generally, development and production. Those are 2 very different parts of the process. Production in significant part means a show that is already up and running. SpongeBob, up and running for 25 years. If you want to go work on SpongeBob, there's one set of things you need to think about. What are the jobs that are available? Who's got them? Which vendor is making which part of the animation? So you might need to go to sub-vendor, a company like Bento Box or Yowza. These are smaller animation companies that are vendors. So we will hire them and say, will you do this part of the animation for SpongeBob? I'm going to say SpongeBob a lot. So you'll need to find out what the specific roles are in there and to try and fit into what those roles are. It's a kind of a different story when you're talking about development. The development process is, I've got an idea. Can I convince a person with money to let me make it and put it on the air? So the development process has changed significantly in the last maybe 1 year. We the studio side figured out that we can't make as much money from streaming as we could from ad-supported cable television. We're seeing an erosion in cable television. Many people in this room probably don't even have cable at all. It was ubiquitous just 10 years ago. And the ad revenue that we were earning from cable shows is not sufficiently being replaced by the subscription fees that we're getting for, in my case, Paramount Plus, and in the legacy studios, Max and Peacock. It's a different story for Apple, Amazon, and Netflix, who make their money other ways. So the revenue that they receive from subscribers isn't quite as important to them. So for companies like mine, in order to develop shows, we just don't have the cash to lay out there to develop 30 shows in the hope that 2 will make it to air, in the hopes that 1 will be our next SpongeBob. So we're trying a different path, maybe over the last even couple of months, which is to put things out on YouTube, which is exactly what everybody else on the panel is saying you should be doing with your original ideas. Get it out there, put it on YouTube. And it's not just a chance. It's the way things are working now, even for big legacy companies like mine. The shows that are already on, that are up and running, those are up and running. If you want to fit yourself into the production side of that, great. If you're interested in development, development is happening where the eyeballs are. That's how you know who likes what. That's happening on YouTube. So you get your thing up on YouTube, and honest to God, your thing has as much of a chance to be the next Cocomelon as mine does. Cocomelon started as a thing that just lived on the internet, and now companies like mine are like, gee whiz, I wish that we'd created that Cocomelon. Why don't we try that path? Because the other path is eroding.
That's great. That's great. I just wanted to talk about teamwork a bit. And, if you're doing comics, you're doing illustration, you're kind of doing things by yourself a lot, but in animation, it's an extremely collaborative environment. So what are things that you might suggest that people should be aware of going into the animation environment, knowing that you got to be talking to a lot of people and it's a teamwork environment? What advice would you give for anyone on that front?
Well, animation, just as by its nature, is collaborative, and it's a team process, and so definitely, one area I could share is like, as a storyboard artist, for example, you want to have clarity to your boards, because a storyboard is really the blueprint for the rest of the production. So really making sure like how the work that you do on that show, how that kind of affects the whole team, and going down a different pipeline during the animation process. So making sure there's clarity to your work and whatnot, and just how that affects others on the team.
Yeah, and definitely what I would like to add that teamwork is definitely essential for the field of animation, as it involves bringing together the talents and the efforts of various individuals to create cohesive and compelling visual narratives. But though there's some 5 most important things. That there's effective communication that ensures alignment on character designs, as you've mentioned, right, on storyboarding or animation sequences. Second is the collaborative decision-making pulls from input from directors, animators, and designers, refining ideas collaborate collectively. Third is about role specialization. It clarifies the individual's response, optimizing each member's unique experience. The fourth is the adaptability is key. Accommodating changes in project scope or deadlines with openness and flexibility. And finally, with work coordination, streamlines the animation process, ensuring the smooth transitions between stages and timely completion. And in summary, successful animation teamwork thrives on clear communication, joint decision, role clarity, adaptability, and work efficiencies. You need all 5 of these important elements to empowering the candidates to contribute meaningfully to creative endeavors.
Yeah, I mean, wow. What she said. The more jobs you do, especially when you're starting out, the more you have empathy for that position, and the more you become aware of it's basically a team sport, animation. You're a big group, and having worked on shows, you start going, oh my God, why? if this team did this, it really set the other team up for success, or it really screwed the next team. And so, because when I started as a writer and a designer, it became really clear to me that if you were not careful, you could really derail everybody. And if you wrote tons of, crowd shots and the worst thing you could ever do to a designer is, and then our hero fights endless villains, each one more fantastic than the next. Like, you might as well just go up to a designer and punch him in the face. So being aware of what you do and what part of the machine you're in, that becomes really, really important later on. And this is really hard stuff. So anything to do to make the process easier, and again, set up the next person to succeed, it all comes back and the show becomes great. Unfortunately, in our history in animation, a lot of the great shows have horrendous pipeline stories of how the shows were made. But then they never sing praise of the shows that do really well that had really, really good pipelines. So that stuff becomes really important. And I know for a lot of us, especially on the artist side, we don't want to deal with any of the management and the technical and the production stuff, but that stuff becomes so important. So I really, really encourage you guys, when you watch cartoons and the cartoons you love, I used to do this. You pause the credits and you start looking up at, like, who are the board artists, who are the designers, who are the writers, and you go on IMDb and you start linking, like, oh my God, that designer's from blah, 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 blah. And then you start seeing, oh my God, the shows where, for example, for me, I was like, the shows where the character designers designed the characters before the storyboards always look better to me. The shows where the boards are done and then the designers are stuck with those proportions, there's only so much they can do. Steven knows exactly what I'm talking about. You start figuring out, what worked, what didn't work. And then the magic starts happening when you start going, oh my God, this guy who was a prop designer in this show is now, like Going El Tigre. The guy who did our animatics, Aaron Horvath, oh my God, he went on to be a Mad director, and then he went on to showrun Teen Titans Go, and most recently he directed the Super Mario Brothers movie. So you see that path, and it went from a animatic editor to billion-dollar movie director. So that also really helps to see those journeys.
I love what you said when you said know where you fit in the production. And that's hard to figure out, right? Because, maybe we grew up doing team sports. A lot of artists didn't really do that, but you tried. Maybe you were picked last. But you don't really have that real world experience to figure out how you fit in the team, right? So at Cal State Long Beach, we have a group film class to teach that exact thing. And every student has to find a team, and then you figure out what your role is going to be. And some say, well, I want to be director. Some say, I want to be producer. And you find out really quickly what that means when you're in a production. Because if everyone's asking you for, okay, what's your artistic opinion about my work, and you have to comment on people's work, or people are an animator's taking 3 weeks on a scene and you've only scheduled it for 1 week. You have to figure out as a producer, how do you have those conversations and communicate? And then when someone says, hey, don't look over my shoulder at how I'm working, I'm not going to tell you how long it takes me. How do you work with personalities, and how do you work with different, I have students that will spend, like 6 days thinking about something. And then on the 7th day, they animate tons. As opposed to the other ones, like, I'm going to finish 4 hours today and 3 hours tomorrow, and both are great, right? But you have to know what your workflow is. How are you going to be productive in a team? But it's hard to figure that out until you actually do it. So, whether it be in school or find a group of artists where you can work together, or someone online, just get into productions, get experience. Short films are out there. There's so many of them. And just trying to figure out. Oh, and the last thing is, like, do you want to be a leader? Do you want to be in a leadership position? Like Jorge said, I wanted to be a director. Or are you great, like, animating or doing storyboards, and you're totally fine not telling other people, like, any information? You just want to put your head down and get work done.
The pipeline is really important for other reasons as well. Again, on my side of things, sort of observing the hiring and across multiple shows, just sort of seeing it as an attorney poking his finger at these different things. A lot of times what will happen is that the bigwig creatives will finally say, yes, we're going to do season 3 of such and such show. Well, the person who's running that show, the person whose job it is to staff it up, gets the word on Thursday that finally the bigwig has said, yes, I know the bigwig could have decided 3 weeks ago, but they wanted to wait till all the data came in. They wanted to make sure that they felt good about investing this money into this next cycle. And so then they say, okay, on Thursday, it's a green light. On Friday, are you guys going to be ready to start? And so if they got to start on Friday, how many hours do you think they're going to dedicate to digging through resumes and looking for people to work on the show? It's 0. They're going to look right here and say, who that I know off the top of my head is going to be good at this? Who's going to be a valuable member of the team that we can all work together, that I understand our workflow, that turns in their work on time, that is cool, that I like, or that I can feel comfortable with? The way you can build those kinds of relationships is so important. It doesn't even matter how. If you get together for brunch every week to chit-chat about the various different parts of animation that you're working on with your buddies, whatever it takes, because of those 10 buddies that you have that you're going to be able to pull together for this weekly accountability meeting to talk about what was I drawing, what was I writing, one of those people is going to go get to work on an Aaron Horvath show as some sort of low-level person. And now, when Aaron Horvath turns and says, hey, does anybody know anybody who can sort of do tweening or whatever in 2D using Harmony or whatever program it is that you learn? Like, well, I got a buddy who I have brunch with every week. Great, bring him in. And that's a significant part of how people get work, is by leveraging those networks. And it might be more challenging for you, which is why you have to force yourself to do it. Make it an assignment. Just make it part of your routine. Make it a rule. Whatever place you have to put it in your head for being social to be a part of your process of finding a job, because it's not only unfair. Yes, you're going against people whose parents were raised in the animation industry and they're going to get their buddy or their buddy's friend a job. You got to make your own buddies and your own friends who can get your own jobs, because that's just the way it works. There's not a lot of time for this to be a full meritocracy. So you have to leverage every little thing that you can, and part of that is being social.
Right on. All right. For the sake of time, I want to get to a very important question, but I do just want to mention, so the importance of the portfolio, right, is to kind of know what it is that you want to do and make sure that you are versatile. You got to be that chameleon, especially for things like television animation. But once you go through that portfolio process and the recruiters see you, they move you forward, well, the next step is the interview process. And I wanted to get the perspective on this because I think this is very important. And can you give some advice on interviewing? Should you disclose that you have autism? Can you describe how it is used, how it used to be in the industry and how it compares to today? And between Aubrey and Jorge, if you guys want to tackle this one too from your experience, or anyone that wants to jump in, and how should talent self-advocate regarding the interview process, for that? So what do employees, recruiters, which candidates would say, that would be a good one for you, but is it something that should be disclosed in an interview?
I'm just going by personal experience. On my end, the 3, when we would hire people who are on the spectrum, they would immediately tell me. And then some people would get diagnosed halfway through the show and then would tell me. But I think it was because I was very open about myself being on the spectrum. So I can't speak for other directors or showrunners. The one thing, I was a terrible interviewer. I still am a terrible interviewer. And so what I do when I meet talent is usually, this is a very hierarchy-based system. By the time I'm meeting with a person, they've gone through a lot of other people. And so when they get to me, I basically ask, this is a trick question if you work for me, I ask you, what's your favorite 3 movies and your favorite 3 shows that you love? And based on that, I know if we're compatible. And it's really telling when people tell you their favorite things. And I hate when they lie. And they've researched me and they know my favorite things and they just tell me what I want to hear, because then I'm like, oh, I can't trust you.
I love Book of Life.
Yeah, Book of Life, and El Tigre. Yeah, like, no.
I think it's challenging because having interviewed people, again, not exactly in an artistic capacity, but in working in showbiz, showbiz takes it really seriously. Representation matters, but also privacy matters. It tends to be a pretty liberal town. And somebody on my side of the table, if I'm interviewing you for a job, again, it'll be a boring job. It'll be to be an attorney, but I can't ask. Like, I feel like I can't ask, but you can tell me, right? You can offer it up. So you actually get to choose whether you do or don't. The question as to whether it's a good idea or not, I don't even know how to answer that question. I know that there's the optimistic answer is tell them, because if If you tell them and then you don't get the job, you didn't want the job anyway. But I mean, you also have to pay your bills, you know? And the world is not, it's crazy news. The world isn't always 100% fair. So you have to make those kinds of judgments for yourself as to whether or not you're going to answer. But honestly, you know, people interviewing you kind of want to get a sense of who you are, how you'll work. And if they leave the room with a question, like, what was that thing that was unusual to me or was unanswered to me, then maybe that uncertainty leads them to move forward with somebody who, for whatever reason, presents themselves more certainly. But if you can answer the question, if you can say like, well, you know, the way my autism presents, I sometimes have a hard time making eye contact, then you have potentially answered a question that they might have had but couldn't answer. Honest to God, I don't know if there's a right answer to this question, but it's something that you get to think about in how you present. Maybe you want to do fake interviews with your family, your friends, or something like that, and get the feedback from them so that you can have an understanding and you can make your mistakes when it doesn't matter so much.
I think that's a great point. And it's, you know, we do the same thing when we interview at Cal State. It's like you can't ask certain questions, but if people open the door, then you can walk through with them, is what they keep saying. So yeah, I think that's a great point. It's like ask yourself or do your practice interviews. And then, but once that door is open, how, you know, what other answers are you going to be comfortable divulging? But the other thing is, I'm thinking about like our industry right now, and it, you know, when we all started, there were studios you could spend a career in. It was possible, but this seems less and less possible these days. So it's almost like contract work. You're coming on for this one job. So, you know, is it as relevant for them to know all the details about you, or is it more relevant that they need to know what you're going to do for this specific job? You know, that's just what came into my head.
Dani, did you want to say?
Yes, people on the autism spectrum should definitely practice to get themselves prepared. And additionally, one thing I would like to add is to dress to impress. Dressing to impress is a great way to be prepared for the interview. It's good to be like business casual, because this is the first thing to be honest, the first thing that the potential client or the interviewer would judge is the first thing they see, the way you dress. And another way the best way you could address to your autism is just email them in advance, just let you know that you have certain sensitivities to bright lights or any rooms. Just they can provide accommodations. So trust me, like that. Just do it at least 3 days before the interview starts. So I personally believe that you should disclose, because the accommodations will set place for any sensory issues. And I think nowadays I've noticed a lot of companies are about to work to challenge to break the communication and social skills barriers for people on the spectrum. But remember, if any company discriminates against you because of your autism, then you probably don't want to work with the employer. But you're right, the bills, people have to pay bills.
And Dani, you brought up a good point, just dress to impress. I just got to say, I do a lot of conventions, and at a lot of conventions, there's a lot of portfolio reviews that happen, and there's people who come and they dress up in cosplay. And I would just advise, if you're going to go for that job interview, just don't dress up in cosplay in that job interview. Really, bring another change of outfit and then do that interview. Yeah, I'm just saying. I just seen it.
If a lawyer came to me dressed in their cosplay, I'd hire them on the spot.
All right. So I just wanted to address like Kyle here with a question in regards to work experience and artists getting work experience. And I know Disney has a pretty great just internship program. Can you tell them just a little bit about the internship program?
So our TVA, or Disney TV Animation, we love our acronyms at Disney. Our Disney TV Animation summer internship is a paid program from June until August. It's a 12-week program. We're reviewing candidates right now, so the position was posted, and so we're just going through candidates right now, which is great. During the length of the program, in addition to, basically we cast those interns onto one of our television series, and so they're there for the 12 weeks. And so during the length of the program, in addition to the fun stuff they get to do on their series, I also like pepper in little events and activities and assignments and lectures, and really getting them, familiarizing them with our, pipeline and process and brand and culture. And also regarding the assignment portion of it, I'll give them 3 individual assignments that are One would be like a character, for example, or story or backgrounds. And then I'll bring in artists and everyone in that area, or several folks from that area, to then give them feedback and advice, and they can meet them as well. And I'll do the same thing for each of those areas. And then the final project is a group project. We were talking about teamwork, and so having all the interns work together on a project to do a little short animatic, and then so they get to bring all their different skills and areas to that specific project. And so it's a great way for them to work together and, like I said, bring all their different skills together for one little project. But that also our particular program is for juniors, seniors, and graduated seniors up to 6 months. And so that we definitely encourage folks to look out for other internships around that may have different qualifications and whatnot. So other studios may have other for folks who are maybe wrapped up after college, or apprenticeship programs and stuff. So definitely keep an eye out for multiple opportunities out there, not just the one at our studio. So.
All right. So, we're coming down to the wire, but I'm just curious, you got an all-star cast up here. Do you guys have any questions we got some, okay, let me start with you right here.
Yeah. So, have any advice?
Actually, so
Jorge.
in talking about, Jorge was talking about looking at the credits of shows. There was this guy named Mike Disa. He happened to have two, I guess they'd be adult kids now, who are both autistic. And he ran a show called Wacky Racers. This is back when I used to be at Warner Brothers Animation. They had to do at least 52 episodes a cycle. So the volume of things that had to get written were very, very large. And he, for whatever reason, was interested in being a pipeline for new writers. So the show's episodes were, I forget whether they were 7-minute episodes or 11-minute episodes, but he was entirely in charge of who got assigned what. So if you had a buddy who wanted to break into animation writing, and you already worked on the show, then Mike would say, all right, let me have a lunch with him. He would have a lunch with the person. The person would basically pitch him 5 ideas for episodes for the show. Mike would say, these 3 I can't use. This one's okay. This one's pretty good. Can you write me an outline? And so then he would get you paid to write that outline. He'd give you the outline. If the outline was okay, then maybe he'd use the outline, and you'd obviously get paid. You get paid before you write a word. Don't write a word without pay when you're dealing with a studio. And then if he thought you couldn't write a script, or if you did write a script, he might pay you and then fix it, give you credit for it. But the point is, animation, and particularly the low-end animation, low-cost animation, like in series animation at places like, I guess it's Warner Brothers Animation still, and Nickelodeon, you need to figure out who is the showrunner. Who is what would the showrunner title be? Senior story editor or something like that? I don't know. Figure out who's the person that does the hiring. Who's the highest titled writer on the show. That person might have slots to fill for next season. And if you can figure out how to get to them, and you can figure out, hey, can I take you to lunch? I love your show. I have a couple of ideas. Then you might solve a problem for them. So finding the low end, because once you're really good, then you want to move to television or to a higher paying show. Find who's the low end, whatever that means. It could be a Nickelodeon show, could be even some of the Disney shows perhaps. But the lower budgeted shows, that's your opportunity to enter and come up with ideas for that show. And when you come up with those ideas, try and work within the props and sets as if it were a play. If you say, oh, in this episode, the wacky racers go to the moon, and they've never been to the moon, that means some background artist has to create moon sets and create all these new characters, and that's expensive. So you want to be able to come up with an idea where you can use the things that have already been built. And those are 2 of the tricks, I think, that could help you sneak in.
All right, let's see another question. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering if you guys had advice for preparing for unexpected setbacks, such as layoffs, how you
Freaking out, breathe it out. Well, I'm just kidding. Well, not just freaking out, breathe it out, but also just at the same time, just remain calm. If any situation like with health emergencies or anything that disrupts the production, just let it happen. Anything happens. There's many ways to it's okay, but however, depending on the pipeline, whether you're working on a television production, a corporate studio, or an independent animation, for indies, definitely do take your time. But when you're working for corporate companies or a corporate production, I know this is gonna, I'm not so sure, but speaking of, I've never worked with a corporate company like television animation or anything, but It's just, you just have to remain calm, let it happen. That's all. I have a question right here. Well, it really depends on the route you want to take. If you're working for a corporate studio, whether for feature animation or like television animation, definitely start from the lower ranks out there, like as a PA or a coordinator, and then work your ranks up higher. That's one route. The other route is just create your own content out there, like putting your content on YouTube, and also get a team together to help you create your amazing animation production. That's how like what Jorge Gutierrez says about Has Been Hotel being made. Definitely get your work out there, and you never know what's going to happen. It's sometimes there's magic. That's a good idea. We can ask this question later, but let's just give a chance to all others. Okay.
Motion for
Outsourcing, like what do you mean?
Like sending stuff to another country? How should prospective talent deal with work being sent out to other countries? Move?
Not just move, but speaking of moving, one thing I would like to add that since the COVID-19 pandemic has brought a silver lining that anybody from all across the world, that remote work makes everything possible. And what I'd like to add to this, with remote work and freelance work, it definitely makes the project much more flexible. That means more projects will be out there. There's more opportunities to see more projects.
But at the same time, hopefully, we hope that a lot more work will come back to Los Angeles with advances in AI. The kinds of things that tend to get sent overseas are things that require a ton of labor, right? So the higher the labor costs are, the higher the cost for the production. So if we can reduce the labor costs, we can reduce the cost of the production. If labor is cheaper, and I know some of our shows are made in India, there's tax rebates that come from Canada. Those are the kinds of things to get pushed away. So if you're thinking you want to live in LA, or if you at least want to live, local to where things are done, find out which part of the job is done there. So that might be storyboarding. I think that the more the creative control that the folks in Hollywood want to have, the more creative parts of the process will be located in Hollywood, be domestic.
5 minutes left, so we'll take I'll come back to you. Yeah, right. Go ahead.
I love you.
It's about working smart.
So just to give you guys an example, so let's just say a Pixar movie about Day of the Dead. That movie cost $200 million. Book of Life cost 50. Right? The audience doesn't go to a movie and they go, "Oh my God, look how well they used their money." Right? Emotion. Emotion is the thing that people connect to. And by the way, saying a movie is low budget and it costs $50 million, that is ridiculous. A ridiculous statement. Song of the Sea, any of the cartoon saloon movies, those are $6 million movies. And, they compete for the Oscars against a $200 million movie. So it's all relative. But I do think one of the things that we're living in is a lot of these giant movies and a lot of these giant shows, the money is not always ending up on screen because they make the movies over and over and over. And by the time they actually make the movie, they spend a lot of money. And so in live action and indie filmmaking, you make the movie in the script. And so for animation, it's ridiculous that in our industry and in our medium, a lot of times the scripts are not that great, and the movies get great in boards. So I always encourage, like, try to make the best script. Put all the energy into that script so that by the time you get to production, the money to make the movie and make the TV show ends up on screen and it doesn't end up on the cutting room floor. So it's just you as a creator and as a director and as an artist being really smart about where does your money go, and try to look at it like, I want the most money to end up on screen.
Right on. Yeah, we got one more time for one more question, unfortunately, so I'll go with you. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's because the most important thing I do is that when I look at the students and work, like with Faith and Kira's, I look at their talent. What is their biggest strength and what is their weakness? So I look for their greatest strengths and what field of animation or production pipeline they're definitely gunning for or suited for. So it's really about finding talent. It's about finding talent, a great fit. What goes right, Kira and Faith?
For me, as an autistic director, I think one of the things I do differently is I always go to the artist, whatever the assignment is, and I go, here's what I would do, but I'm not doing it. You're doing it. So show me what you would do. And if you can't come up with something, then do what I told you I would do.
Show them.
So there's no pressure. So it's a win-win. And if you do something and I don't like it, we can talk about it. It's not the end of the world. But I'm more interested to see what you would do. And whenever I was given that opportunity, that's when I thrived. So I try to do that.
And to answer your question about is the world big enough? Oh yeah, the world's big enough. There are many different ways to make shows. We have shows that start with a script. We have shows that start with a storyboard artist. Tom and Jerry, when I was over at Warner Brothers Animation, led as a storyboard-driven show. And those were the folks who were in charge. Exceptional Minds has set up, you've seen some of the videos, or maybe you guys have been over. I've visited the space, but I haven't really worked there, obviously. That can make accommodations to folks who are autistic so that the animation process can be better suited to the talent that they want to work with. So absolutely, there's no reason it couldn't be done. And it's going to perhaps take some convincing or showing why it's worth it, because any kind of change potentially is going to be expensive. Might be better. And the first person who's willing to take a chance is going to benefit from that fact.
Well, guys, we have to wrap it up. And thank you to everyone. Let's give a warm welcome. Thank you, guys. Have a great rest of your day. Okay, thanks. Thanks, guys.